Hello and welcome everyone to this channel update video. I'm making this video to let everyone know what's going on with this channel and my plans for the future of this channel. The first problem I want to address is the incredibly infrequent and scarce uploads for the past couple years. This is a multifaceted issue. The biggest problem I have is my lack of time to work on these videos. Each video takes about 50 hours of work. That includes the whole process, starting from creating a deck tech on Moxfield, to writing a script, creating the visual component, recording and editing the audio, creating the thumbnail, and finally being able to upload the finished product on YouTube. With each video being about 20 to 30 minutes long, the videos end up being a lot of work, and it sure feels like work during most of the process. Just about every content creator on YouTube recommends to upload at least one video a week to gain traction on YouTube. I simply don't have an extra 50 hours laying around per month to work on videos, let alone per week. In order to give the channel the love it deserves, I'd have to make it my full-time job, and I have nowhere near the amount of viewership to take that necessary step. The second issue that I've had with uploading videos is my deteriorating passion for the MTG hobby. I haven't paid attention to Magic at all in the last 2 years. I've only played a handful of times in that period, and honestly I haven't even enjoyed those matches much. I'm honestly not sure where my passion for the game disappeared to. Well, at the beginning of 2020 I was still enjoying the game. I was starting to have some problems with Magic, mostly the power creep, especially in Commander thanks to a lot of broken commanders coming out at the time. But overall, I was still enjoying the game about 75% compared to what I think was the Commander format's peak excitement in the early and mid 2010s. Well, we all know what happened in 2020. This shut down all the game stores, and I wasn't able to play any games for much of that year. I was so distracted, wondering if it was the end of the world, which is a little silly in hindsight, and I was working 7 days a week a lot of that year, because lucky me, I was an essential worker, so I ended up not paying attention to Magic at all. The hobby seemed unworthy of my attention at the time because so much was going on that year. At about the end of 2020, work finally slowed down a bit, and I actually had some free time to indulge in my hobbies once more. I was frustrated getting back into the hobby by the amount of product I missed over that year. I couldn't believe that Wizards unloaded more product that year than any other year previously. I would have figured that they would slow down since the whole world was shut down. I remember it took an annoying amount of time and research to get reallocated with all the new cards in the updated meta. I couldn't believe that the game changed so much in a short period of time, especially since most people were unable to play that year too. However, after getting into the game, I was enjoying myself again. I was even playing Arena for a while. Then I started having to work like crazy again, and I ended up buying a house which takes up a tremendous amount of time and effort. Now fast forward to today, and I've been really busy ever since. Now I'm 3 years behind on knowledge of the game. I've tried multiple times to wrap my head around the absurd number of new cards that have come out in that time. I just can't do it. The amount of product, especially Commander product, that has been shoved down our throats is overwhelming to the point where it's simply not worth engaging with anymore. My channel was based on giving informative advice on Commander. However, now my knowledge is incredibly outdated and my experience is now lacking, so I can't give advice on the format anymore. And I simply don't have the time or passion to update my knowledge and experience with the game. At the time of writing this, I haven't played a game of Magic in about 4 months, and I don't have a desire to do so. I think I've basically retired from the game. However, the title of this video is Channel Update, not Channel Ending or Channel Deletion. Instead, one passion dies and another one is born. I've played video games for as long as I remember, and I've dedicated most of my free time to that hobby. However, like Magic, I have lost my passion for video games too. I don't want to sound like too much of an old man, but video games nowadays just are terrible, for a multitude of reasons that I'm not going to go over since I'm not a video game analysis channel. Check out Actman's The Decline of Gaming for a solid video on that subject. I found myself earlier this year retired from video games and Magic. All of a sudden, I had nothing to do in my free time. This is fine when I'm working a ton of overtime, which is far too often. However, I was basically just doing chores around the house in my free time, not much else. It's really starting to affect me negatively. I tried getting back into MTG at the time, but it was just too overwhelming and frustrating, and I was simply done with it. A couple months of this boredom passed, and I was in desperate need of a hobby to fill up my free time. I had just started playing a phone game called Warhammer 40k Tacticus at the time, and the thought occurred to me, why don't I get into Warhammer 40k? I had a handful of incredibly poorly painted and built models of when I dipped my toes in the hobby back in 2009, and going back to the hobby and doing it right has always been a thought that's been in the back of my mind. I got out my old models and paints and decided to give the hobby a try. While I poorly painted and built what was left of my old models, I decided to look up on YouTube information about the hobby. I was surprised to discover a huge community of hobbyists who have entire channels dedicated to painting, lore, gameplay, and game analysis. It gave me very similar vibes to Magic, especially Commander at its peak, as the hobby seems to be very community driven. After I finished poorly painting what was left of my minuscule collection, I decided to go to my local hobby shop to buy some more models that paint and build poorly. When I was watching YouTube videos during my painting sessions, I learned that 10th edition was coming out in just a couple weeks, and it came with a giant box set of brand new miniatures. It turned out I decided to join the hobby at the perfect time, since 10th edition was being sold as a more simplified version of the game, and a great intro point for newbies. And to be honest, what little I researched about 9th edition, it seemed like an overcomplicated mess, and it probably would turn me away from the hobby. Heck, 10th edition has been difficult enough to understand and fully wrap my head around all its intricacies. When I was finally able to get the Leviathan box, I was 100% dedicated to getting at least adequate at painting, and truly understanding the game. I spent every minute of free time I had either painting or looking up videos how to paint or how to play the game and the lore of the 40k universe. And before I knew it, I was hooked. I was finally completely engaged with something that I was passionate about, which hasn't happened since the release of Elden Ring in early 2022. 4 months later, my mind has been completely fixated on the hobby ever since. My plan was to take a break after I finished the gargantuan task of completing the Leviathan box, but I just wanted to keep going. My energy for the hobby seems to be endless. Like I said earlier, the last time I felt this way was the first couple months when Elden Ring was released. I deeply regret not fully investing and engaging with the game like I should have. I regret not dropping everything and fully devoting myself to that passion. I should have made content for it. I'm not going to repeat that mistake with Warhammer. The hobby itches the perfect scratches for me. My love for building things, my creative side, and my love for strategy, all while taking place in a grim dark future that my edgelord self can really vibe with. Instead of making a whole new channel, I'm going to transition into focusing on Warhammer 40k content on this channel. I'm not sure specifically what I want to focus on yet. I'm probably going to try everything until something sticks. Painting guides, game analysis, and hopefully gameplay should be coming in the recent future. I understand that this might be disappointing to my subscribers that came to my channel for Magic content. I'd understand if you want to unsubscribe. However, if you're interested in the Warhammer hobby, I'd recommend sticking with me. Or if you're sick of Magic like I am, I'd recommend sticking around so you might get into the Warhammer 40k hobby like I have. Well, I didn't want this video to become a history lesson about my recent hobby life. However, I wanted to let everyone know exactly where my headspace is at and has been in regards to MTG, and why I moved away from the hobby. And hopefully it wasn't too boring for you to listen to. I want to thank you for watching. I'd appreciate it if you like, comment, and subscribe, because
only a heretic would not like, comment, and subscribe.